It's no surprise that among all the models that Samsung launched in the S22 series, the S22 Ultra has been getting all the attention, while the regular S22 and the S22 Plus are, well, living under its shadow. And that's totally understandable why. I mean, the Ultra has gotten a complete design overhaul this time, whereas it also brings the S Pen built in and a fancier camera setup. But this also begs another question. Is Samsung deliberately skipping some essential features on the Plus model to make the Ultra look better? Now, don't get me wrong, I think the S22 Plus is a reasonably good iterative upgrade from its predecessor, but I can't help but think how this phone could have been so much better if Samsung had shared some spotlight of the Ultra on the Plus variant too. Hey everyone, I am Pratima and I have been using the Galaxy S22 Plus alongside the Galaxy S22 Ultra for the past 3 weeks, and in this video I will be sharing my experiences of the S22 Plus with you guys, and also answering if it's worth considering the Galaxy S22 Plus over the S22 Ultra as your daily driver. So let's begin. Okay, let's start with the design side of things. When I first saw the official renders of the Galaxy S22 Plus, I thought, hey, it looks exactly like the S21 Plus. But looks can be deceiving after all, since the hands-on feel of this phone turned out to be nothing like the S21 Plus. Ditching the classic curved design, Samsung has gone with a more squared-off form factor with round edges this time, kind of like the iPhones. And I am both happy and sad about this change. Happy because the boxier design helps with the grip a lot. Well, sad because the edges of the S22 Plus are a bit sharp, so holding it might not be the most comfortable at times. I just wish that Samsung had refined the design a bit more, similar to how the S22 Ultra feels so seamless on the hands. With the glass back and armored aluminium frames, the phone does retain a good heft though. And because Samsung has decided to go with a smaller battery here, the S22 Plus is actually lighter than the S21 Plus and a bit thinner too. And something that I've always loved about the Plus variants is that they're just the right size. They are not too small like the standard S22, and they're not huge like your Ultras either. Plus, Samsung has not missed out on any flagship features here. You get Gorilla Glass Victus Plus protection both on the front and back, then there's IP68 dust and water resistance, and also an awesome pair of stereo speakers. Now, these speakers sound really good. Samsung has fine-tuned the already impressive speakers of the S21 Plus to give us a more balanced output on the S22 Plus. Pitting it against the Ultra, they sound pretty similar. It's only that the S22 Plus slightly boosts the highs, while the Ultra's audio is more leveled up. In most cases, you probably will not notice the difference between the two though. Samsung always makes sure to provide the best display experience in its flagship phones, and you can expect nothing less from the S22 Plus. This 6.6 inches dynamic AMOLED display is crisp, the color reproduction is amazing, and it has double the contrast ratio compared to the S21 Plus, which means darker blacks and brighter whites. Not to forget, it achieves 1750 nits of peak brightness, so using it in the brightest environments is not going to result in any kind of visibility issues either. Even in terms of visual aesthetics, the bezels here are symmetrical and almost non-existent, so the viewing experience on the S22 Plus is among the absolute best. And just like the S22 Ultra, it also brings the Vision Booster feature, which adjusts things like contrast and color saturation in very bright or very dim lighting conditions. It's something similar to the True Tone feature that you'll find on iPhones, although this is mostly geared towards maintaining excellent visibility under direct sunlight while maintaining excellent colors and contrast levels. But I found this feature to be quite subtle and even unnoticeable at times though. Regardless, one thing that has bugged me about this display is how it's not as adaptive as the S22 Ultra. The S22 Ultra features an adaptive refresh rate known as LTPO 2.0 technology that can go from 1 Hz to 120 Hz depending on your usage scenario. But the S22 Plus employs something called LTPS technology that can only shift from 48 Hz to 120 Hz. I think it would have made perfect sense to include LTPO on the S22 Plus, considering its smaller battery capacity and the fact that this is still a $1,000 flagship phone. Other than that, I am quite satisfied with the display experience on this thing. This screen also includes an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint sensor, and I have to say that Samsung has really perfected it over the years. This sensor's response is blazingly fast and it's quite accurate too. Also, the haptic feedback here is just great. The vibration is strong, but it's not buzzy at all. Even when I had the phone in my bag, I would never miss a call, and the typing experience on the S22 Plus is quite pleasant as well. Okay, supporting the performance on the S22 series is Qualcomm's latest and greatest Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 or Samsung's in-house Exynos 2200 chip depending on where you live. Previously, my region would always get the Exynos model, but this time it's the opposite. I'll admit I was quite bummed about not getting the Exynos variant since there was a lot of hype surrounding Samsung's collaboration with AMD for RDNA 2 graphics on the Exynos 2200. I remember Samsung even posted a tagline saying playtime is over to promote this latest flagship mobile chip. But ultimately, the Exynos 2200's real-life performance met with a lot of criticism, and the Snapdragon version turned out to be the superior, more stable option after all. And with that, the real-life performance on the Galaxy S22 Plus has been great. The phone is fast, it's responsive, and capable of handling anything you throw at it. From the most demanding games to heavy multitasking, the S22 Plus can take it all. As I mentioned before, I have been testing it alongside the S22 Ultra and have been monitoring both their performances too. And naturally, with the same chipset and the same software optimization, both phones deliver similar performance during regular everyday tasks. However, gaming and thermals under heavy load are where the S22 Ultra has a significant upper hand, mainly because of the newer and improved cooling solution it has, which includes a gel-temp thermal paste. According to Samsung, it can supposedly transfer heat up to 3.5 times more effectively than its predecessor, along with graphite sheeting for effective cooling, all of which are missing on the regular S22 and the S22 Plus. Hence, demanding games like Genshin Impact play better on the Ultra with slightly higher FPS and sustained thermal performance under the highest settings and 60 FPS mode turned on. You have to note that the in-game stability is almost similar between these phones though. It's just that the S22 Plus gets considerably warm rather quickly and reaches around 43 degrees Celsius near and below the camera module after around 20 minutes into the game. To compare, the S22 Ultra was able to keep the thermals in check with a comparatively cooler surface temperature. In other less demanding games like PUBG and Call of Duty though, both phones showed very similar results where the S22 Plus mostly maintained below 40 degrees Celsius temperature, similar to the S22 Ultra. On a different note, I am also slightly disappointed in Samsung regarding the fact that being a $1,000 flagship phone, the S22 Plus is restricted to just 8GB RAM and up to 256GB storage, while you can configure the Ultra with up to 12GB RAM and an insane 1TB storage. Now, regarding the software experience, I like how the company has focused on minute details to improve the overall smartphone experience. I love how you can match the entire theme of the UI based on the wallpaper you choose, and the adaptive refresh rate works flawlessly while switching from one app to another as well. I know, the theming stuff is a part of the Android 12 experience, but it's so well implemented on such a heavily customized Android skin. And lately, Samsung has been doing great in terms of software updates as well. This time around, it has even promised up to 4 years of platform and 5 years of security updates for its flagship phone. Finally, it feels like Android is almost on par with iOS in terms of software support, and I couldn't be happier about it. Alright, let's talk about the cameras now. Compared to last year's Galaxy S21 Plus, Samsung has made a series of changes in the cameras of the S22 Plus. First off, the main sensor here is a 50-megapixel wide lens followed by a 10-megapixel telephoto camera capable of 3 times optical zoom compared to the 3 times hybrid zoom on the S21 Plus. Finally, there's a 12-megapixel ultra-wide-angle lens and a 10-megapixel shooter up front for selfies. Now, with the S22 Plus's cameras, there were basically 2 things that I wanted to check. Number 1, how much of an improvement is there coming from the S21 Plus? And number 2, what differences are there between the S22 Plus and S22 Ultra's cameras? Pitting the images from the S21 Plus and the S22 Plus against each other, you can notice how Samsung has improved shadow processing with the new 50 megapixel sensor, where the detail levels are relatively better too. In general, I found the slightly warmer color tone of the S22 Plus to look more appealing than the cooler ones from the S21 Plus. The warmer color tones and better shadow processing extend to the ultra-wide-angle images too, while the detail levels remain more or less the same. And I even found the selfies to have quite similar properties, except that the S21 Plus has a reddish tint, whereas the photos from the S22 Plus have a more yellowish tint to them. As I mentioned earlier, I prefer a warmer hue, but it's totally a matter of personal preference. Also, contrast is a lot more balanced on the S22 Plus's images. The S22 Plus natively uses its 3x telephoto lens for portrait images, while the S21 Plus zooms in 2 times to take the same shot. The S22 Plus's portraits look great with a nice subject focus and good details, but I wish the shadow processing on subjects was better. The S21 Plus does soften the subject a lot actually, but I found that it was able to process shadows better. Hence, in some scenarios, last year's S21 Plus actually brings out better portraits. On the other hand, I found the nighttime pictures of the S22 Plus to be more sharper, a bit brighter, and less noisy. Night mode on both phones works well to reduce noise, but the S22 Plus still captures better detailed shots with slightly superior exposure control too. So yeah, Samsung has definitely refined the cameras on the S22 Plus, but it's worth considering that except for a few subtle improvements, the S21 Plus is still a great camera phone and a reliable one at that. Alright, now comes the more interesting part. Are the cameras on the S22 Plus as good as the S22 Ultra? Well, if I don't nitpick, I will say yes. Yeah, it cannot zoom in 100 times like the Ultra, but the instance where one would zoom in that much is little to none. Apart from that, the normal daytime images from the S22 Ultra have better sharpness even when you zoom in, and besides that, there isn't much visible difference here. However, the bigger sensor on the S22 Ultra does struggle to lock focus on close-up subjects, which is not a problem for the S22 Plus. But during nighttime, its 108 megapixel main sensor does manage to capture more light and maintain better sharpness. And yes, the S22 Plus comes with the same videography prowess as the Ultra, where you can shoot up to 8K 24 FPS footages with good stabilization. Then again, I don't ever shoot in 8K, so that wasn't a big deal for me. On the other hand, 4K 60 FPS footages are quite stable here, both from the front and back cameras. So if you're someone who's into vlogging, this is certainly one of the best options out there, after the iPhones, of course. Recently, I went on a trip and I shot a lot of videos from both the S22 Plus and the S22 Ultra, and what I can tell you is that if I go for another trip anytime soon, I will confidently take the S22 Plus or the Ultra with me for my videography needs. Lastly, the battery life on the S22 Plus has not been extraordinary, which is a given considering its smaller battery capacity, a power-hungry processor, and the lack of better dynamic refresh rate feature. In normal usage, the phone would go from morning to evening with no trouble on a single charge, but that's it. If I had to go out for the night, I would have to recharge the battery again. Yet, Samsung seems to have improved the standby time here. With last year's Galaxy S21 Plus, I had graphed the overnight battery drain to be as high as 7 to 8%, but with the S22 Plus, that number comes to just 2 to 3%. I know it's not as good as the iPhones, but it's noteworthy nonetheless. For charging, the S22 Plus supports up to 45-watt charging, which seems like an upgrade compared to the 25-watt charging on the S21 series, but there's more to the story. Using a compatible 45-watt power brick, I logged the time it goes from 0 to 100% at exactly 1 hour, whereas funnily enough, the phone takes just 5 minutes more for a fill-up using the 25-watt power adapter. So if you're thinking of getting the 45-watt charger for yourself, I would strongly suggest you save the trouble and your money and go for the 25-watt charger instead. Alright, we have now come to the end of this video, and I have to admit that I've had a great time using the S22 Plus. I think this is an incredibly practical device for someone who wants to use a flagship Samsung phone but does not want to, number one, go all in with cash, number two, does not use the S Pen, and number three, does not need all those fancy zoom capabilities. For those people, the S22 Plus ticks almost all the boxes and nails the basics in a really impressive way. I mean, it's got a great design, it's got an impressive display, it's got cameras that are almost on par with the S22 Ultra, and you're also getting similar performance levels, if not the same. However, I do think that Samsung could have made this phone even better, but decided not to because, after all, they've got to sell the more expensive S22 Ultra, which has higher profit margins for the company. In the end, this is all business. In an ideal parallel universe, the S22 Plus would have been a perfect phone if it had all the goodness of the S22 Ultra, like the advanced LTPO 2.0 display, the 108 megapixel primary camera, and the new cooling mechanism. Yeah, that would have been a pretty dope universe to live in.
Run, Barry, run!
Mess up the timeline again. So guys, that was all for our full review of the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus. I will be coming up with the full review of the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra as well. So to watch that, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon. Till then, I'm Pratima and thank you so much for watching.